Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me and the Chief Constable Andy Marsh. This is our third Facebook live chat. So it's all part of making the constabulary more transparent, more open and accessible, which is why we have these live web chats, so that we're covering a range of subjects, and we have some questions as well from local people. So over the next 30 minutes, we will be talking about fraud, body-worn cameras, rural crime, and obviously tasers. So, Andy, today we've had, for the last 10 days, there have been many concerns raised by the communities about the recent incident that involved Mr. Adumbi. So, I've seen the footage that over 2 million people have seen. And there have been, a number of questions raised with me, via the community, via people who phoned me and contacted me, and in fact at every meeting that I have attended over the last few days. And I really want to ask you, what are you doing about it?
Okay, well, it's important to explain a few things. The scrutiny and accountability that you bring to bear upon me as Police and Crime Commissioner around our use of the very significant powers we have is a very necessary part of our British policing model. So we absolutely welcome that. Because this has been referred to the Independent Police Complaints Commission, and we voluntarily referred it, and we did that before it broke in the media, and we also asked the CPS to review the case before it broke in the media. These are important parts. We also captured 2 accounts on body-worn video of the officers at the scene. So there is full transparency around this, but because this has been referred to the Independent Police Complaints Commission and is now subject to their independent investigation, there are very strict rules that I need to respect around that accountability and scrutiny. That means I can't talk openly about the circumstances of that particular taser deployment, and that's very frustrating. But I would want anyone watching this to understand that once that investigation has been completed, and I hope that you will encourage the IPCC to do that quickly, I will attend any community meeting and explain what we did, why we did it, what went wrong if something went wrong, what we've learned from it, and what we're doing about it.
So why do the police use tasers? Well,
the policing model in England and Wales is a unique model globally. In fact, the only other police force in the world that's not routinely armed is New Zealand Police, which is based on the British model. We only operate the way we do, which is unarmed, because of the support and consent of the public. But obviously we do sometimes encounter some people who are incredibly violent towards police officers. Every single week I personally write to or speak to about 6 police officers, members of police staff, who have been assaulted protecting the communities of Avon and Somerset. They do need some tools to do their job. Taser is what we call a less lethal option. It has a minimal ampage, about 0.5 in an amp, but a very high voltage, which means that it renders somebody who has a taser deployed against them unable to use their muscles for the moments that voltage is flowing. Thereafter, they recover very, very quickly. The only significant danger is if they bang their heads falling over. So it is a serious tool used to deal with people who are violent or potentially violent, and used very, very sparingly. So just to give you the figures, in 2016 it was used only about 100 times, and it was used fewer occasions than it was used in 2015, 110. Every single taser deployment, and I mean just getting the thing out, not deploying it, we get it out about 600 times a year, is reviewed by our operational practice of recording things. So I would say that my police officers, routinely unarmed, doing an incredibly difficult and dangerous job, need the tools to do their job. Some of them, about 300 in Avon and Somerset of the 2,700, are authorised and trained to use taser, and they use it sparingly. That's why we use it, and I would say that's essential. Someone's phone is going, which is rather irritating.
Okay. I think one of the issues that I have been concerned is that using the taser is a power that's given to the police. And we've started last year a taser scrutiny panel. And that is really key, so that especially with body-worn cameras, which we'll talk about later, but that getting groups of local residents in to actually see the reasons that the tasers have been used. And I think that going forward that we will be able to show more and more people what that body-worn footage is. So I think that tasers are an issue, something that I've had concerns about. And I suppose that I would ask you is how can you guarantee to me and to our communities that this won't happen again?
Okay, well, there's a number of ways in which we can work to achieve that. We can make sure that we select and train suitable officers. We can make sure that that training is the best that we can give. I can guarantee you right now, even though that this matter that we're talking about is under investigation by the Independent Police Complaints Commission, I am not waiting to see whether there is any learning that arises from the way in which we use taser under those circumstances. So that is being assessed right now and is being rebriefed back into our training processes.
Not right now?
Yeah, right now.
So you're not waiting for the investigation to finish?
No, that is a piece of work that I've already commissioned as being urgent and important, and so we will act way ahead of any findings of the IPCC. In terms of being able to guarantee it, I can guarantee you that I will do my best to create an environment where those officers are properly selected, properly trained, and as responsibly as possible use those very, very significant powers vested in us to arrest people. Now, what I can't guarantee you is that things will occasionally go wrong. Sometimes mistakes will be made because I've got 5,500 people doing policing with Avon and Somerset, and they're dealing with a population of 1.65 million people in very, very ambiguous circumstances, which are sometimes entirely unpredictable because of drug use and other substances. Sometimes things will go wrong.
But we need that openness and transparency if it does go wrong.
Well, I think we need a few things. I would plea that my officers and staff, I know, are doing their best out there right now to keep people safe, and we need an effective police force. That's why they signed up. So it's my job to make sure they're doing that. There's two things that we also need, apart from my support and commitment to lead them and their goodwill to do that dangerous work. The two other things that we need openness and transparency. Well, you have enabled that through the purchase of the body-worn video. We have 2 recordings, which we haven't been able to release to the public because the IPCC have got them, of exactly what happened that day. And that will be the case with other taser usages. So we need openness and transparency. I guarantee you that, even when things go wrong. But the second thing that I guarantee you is that I understand and recognise the legitimacy of the objectivity, scrutiny and accountability that you bring to ask me what my people are doing and why they're doing it. Now you're helped on this occasion, or you're supported by the IPCC. So I hope that people listening to this, whilst recognising the reasons why I can't talk about this case, unfortunately, that frustrates me, will understand that there are some really important things happening here. I'm supporting my officers using a valuable tool out there right now to keep people safe. I am subjecting us to legitimate accountability and scrutiny, and right now we're also getting on learning and improving what we do, because I want a police service that learns, not one that blames.
Sure. Well, moving on from there, because it's very closely linked, is that you've now issued to over 2,000 frontline officers and PCSOs the body-worn video cameras. So tell me, what is the purpose of everyone having this body-worn camera?
We are one of the first police forces in the whole world that has been able to personally issue all of its police officers and PCSOs with the body-worn video. You made funding available for this early last year, and we've got it out there very, very quickly, which I'm pleased to say, and I am already starting to see some remarkable results of it. So there are multiple aims and objectives of it. They gather the most unbelievable evidence which helps support prosecutions, particularly around domestic abuse, where the cameras are used in circumstances where the officers can see damage, maybe children crying, maybe very obvious injuries, and maybe significant statements by a victim and significant statements by a suspect, which would not otherwise play out in that criminal justice system. When those are shown to magistrates, defence lawyers, CPS, it brings the whole thing to light. So gathering evidence is very significant. That leads to other significant issues. The body-worn video footage is shown during interview and disclosed early, so we do tend to get earlier admissions of guilt, if relevant. We do tend to get earlier guilty pleas, all of which makes the criminal justice system more efficient and more effective. We do also significantly get fairer and juster sentencing, because the magistrates and the judges can actually see what's happened. And I've got plenty of anecdote about where judges and magistrates have referred to the body-worn video, indeed changed the level of charge. There are also some other benefits, and we were just talking about taser, but stop search is another police power which is incredibly emotive in communities, and understandably so. The body-worn video opens a window, shines a light of transparency and accountability on what police officers and PCSOs are doing operationally. And actually this is incredibly welcome in building trust and confidence in our policing model. And I imagine, my expectation is that all stop and search will be body-worn videoed, and unless there's a reason why something happens very quickly, I would expect taser to be body-worn videoed as well. I think the third and final thing, there are some other benefits I would say, is there is an awful lot of evidence being built up on the use of the body-worn video. Our cameras have got a forward-facing screen that makes it obvious to somebody they're being recorded, and the officer will give a warning as well that this is being recorded. There is a significant body of evidence that shows that members of the public being recorded will change their behaviour towards the police officer, perhaps if they're being violent or offensive, but also there is evidence that the act of videoing and recording the incident professionalises the behaviour of the police officer or PCSO. So my old force, Hampshire, where I was chief, where we were the first in the world to personally issue body-worn video, saw a reduction in complaints of incivility by almost 40% within the first year.
And one of the interesting things about the body-worn footage is that because you'll be using it for stop and search as well, is that again we will have a panel of local residents to be able to scrutinise that, because that in itself will they'll be able to report very independently about whether they think it's appropriate or not.
In the past, we've had such panels that have looked at paper reports around the objective and grounds of the search. Actually, that's very dry and difficult to make a judgment. If a picture paints 1,000 words, I think this will significantly help that transparency and accountability. And
I would agree, as an ex-magistrate, it's very different being read out the facts as opposed to being able to see something for yourself. Thank you for that. Let's just move on to fraud now. So there was 6 million fraud and cybercrimes in the UK in 2015-16. That's almost as many as all other crimes added together. So that means in Avon and Somerset, that's over 5,000 people were victims of fraud between April and September 2016. How is the constabulary going to tackle this increasing crime?
Well, we've seen a complete sea change in demand, whether it's about vulnerability of children, vulnerability of adults, or other hidden crimes. But one of the significant things that has changed this pattern of offending behaviour is the internet. It is actually a wonderful thing for sharing information, but it's provided significantly an opportunity for people to commit fraud through any variety of means. But also those frauds are happening via the telephone and other means, courier fraud. It's very important that we change what we do to help respond to that and help protect our communities. Now, one of the changes which you've agreed to, and in fact it encouraged me to make, is that we've doubled the size of our internet online abuse team. So we are already changing the shape of our organisation to meet the changing demand. Actually, we have delivered some additional training and we have created additional capability. But to be frank with you, there is an awful lot more that we need to do to get ahead of this problem around fraud.
We've had a question from Philip who asks, what do the police do in regards to email frauds? And I know from speaking to many residents that they ring the police to report a fraud and then they're directed to action fraud, and then they never hear back from action fraud, so they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, action fraud is a national capability. It's hosted by the City of London Police. And they provide a service to all of the police forces in England and Wales. At the moment, they will give us a summary of those fraud offences reported to them on a 6-weekly basis. So we are very much looking in our mirrors about what has happened. From April this year, that protocol is going to change, and we will get very near real-time reporting of what fraud's happening on area so we can respond to it. Now, the reason why a national body does need to record and collate this crime is that many of those frauds, possibly almost all of them, will be committed not only from a different part of England and Wales, but probably more likely from a different country in the world to an intended victim within Avon and Somerset. one of the reasons why policing is finding it difficult to catch up with this is that is an entirely new phenomenon. So we've got a victim in our area and offender who we don't know who they are, operating from probably another part of the world beyond any sort of enforcement jurisdiction that we might currently have. And so this is something that policing is working very hard to get to grips with.
But these cyber criminals are targeting, particularly I'm concerned about those most vulnerable. So they are elderly and those with dementia. So this week I supported a national campaign to urge older people and their families to learn how to spot the signs of financial abuse, because we keep hearing more and more of these. So what is the constabulary going to do to safeguard our most vulnerable who are being targeted by these cyber criminals?
Well, we have provided online training to every single police officer and member of police staff. We have provided enhanced investigative training to almost 500 police officers within Avon and Somerset, and we have provided them with some new tools to do the job, and you have just created funding for a cyber prevent officer. Mm-hmm. The answer in truth is that prevention is the only way that we will defeat this. So prevention will happen through two significant means. The first is industry. Google, major internet service providers will actually make their environment, the internet, very, very difficult, if not impossible by my wish, for people to commit fraud or other heinous crimes. Actually, that's one significant thing. The second significant thing is that we through our training, our engagement at neighbourhood level, and through those cyber prevent officers, will actually target information that we give to our whole community, but also particularly to vulnerable parts of the community. Now, I was only at a meeting this morning with fire and rescue chiefs from Devon and Somerset and Avon, talking about how they can give cyber prevention advice to the many thousands of vulnerable elderly people's homes that they're in every single year around fire prevention. They can also be giving cyber prevent information. And actually, there is an anecdotal experience of this. We've all got it. We all get those phishing emails. The best thing is never open attachments, delete them. Actually, I got a phone call over the weekend from somebody purporting to be BT. And they said my hub wasn't working, and indeed it hadn't been working very well. So they caught my attention. They wanted me to log my computer on and start doing things with my computer at their behest, at which point I realised this was clearly fraudulent or an effort to defraud me, and I challenged them. They put the phone down. So the only way that we will succeed is making the environment hostile. That's the business. And then secondly, us working in a targeted way with our communities to empower them so that they can actually take preventative action themselves.
Yeah, we need as a general public, we need to be more switched on as well. And that, all the time we're being told to have a number of passwords, and most of us don't.
And so it's about your own security, but these people they are professional criminals. They're operating throughout the whole world, and they know ways to catch your attention. So, for example, I ring you up and say, your bank account's been compromised, I need you to help me sort this out. Immediately you've got my attention. I'm worried, my bank account's been compromised. So I would want members of the public listening to recognise if the banks will not approach you like that, you just need to be very sceptical of people contacting you by telephone and email.
Let's move on to rural crime. I don't know whether you saw, but Avon and Somerset's rural crime team on Country File, which was brilliant, but it was heartbreaking to hear from the farmer who had 220 sheep stolen. Many victims of rural crime feel very isolated, feel that the police are not taking them seriously. And I know, as a PCC, that a lot of work is going on, but we are still not communicating that well to our rural villages and towns, particularly in Somerset. So how can we show that the police are actually tackling rural crime? How can we get that message out?
Well, the first thing I would want to do is recognise what you say. Rural crime is a problem, and rural communities, many people feel isolated. It's a different form of isolation. But what we know is that where strong communities thrive, crime is forced out. It doesn't take place. And so we have got a rural crime team. They are undertaking all sorts of initiatives at this time of year. They will be particularly checking a lot of trailer movements, plant movements, and movements of animals. So if you are working in the rural industry, the countryside, and my officers or PCSOs engage with you and stop you, please be patient. There's a lot of it happening at this time of year. I think that the second thing is we've got a pretty vibrant farm watch and horse watch. I would urge members of the rural community to work with us on that. And we're about to launch a 3-month trial on a text message system, so that actually if members of the rural community see something suspicious, they can text it to a dedicated number and let us know what's happening. Now we've done that because actually the rural community have said they want that capability. We're going to trial it for 3 months.
Yeah, farmers have told me direct that that's the best way of being contacted, because if they're out in the fields or wherever, that text message is really important. So I'm glad that you're using that particular way of talking to them.
I might be able to find the number from it. Perhaps someone...
Okay.
Could you have a look? There's a number in there, just in case anyone was watching wants it.
Okay, so on Twitter, we've been asked, what are the police doing to tackle wildlife crime?
We have got a dedicated wildlife crime officer.
Okay.
There are all sorts of detailed wildlife-specific crimes which actually involve quite a high level of expertise. Around protective species, around stealing eggs, around protecting our very precious countryside. So we've got a dedicated wildlife specialist officer, and that individual spreads their knowledge particularly to neighbourhood policing teams in the rural communities. Okay,
thank you for that. I don't know whether we found the number.
I have got this text alert, and it's been launched on the 17th of January, and the text alert number to combat rural crime is 81819.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. And that's, so if you have that, you spot something that you think is that should be brought to the police attention. And remember that you may only have a tiny bit of that jigsaw. So I'd ask you certainly to use that number and make sure that constabulary are aware of that. I think we are nearly run out of time now, Andy, but is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, as ever, whether it's the rural community or whether it's the whole community, all of us who will know people who are vulnerable, and indeed we're all vulnerable at some stage in our lives, if it's only when we're children or when we're older, to work with us to try and help protect yourselves, your friends and your family members. So we've made an appeal there to use the rural crime text alert and to join Farm Watch and Horse Watch. I think I also make a significant appeal around fraud, particularly cyber fraud. There is a massive amount of information out there. So I've had a look at it recently because I knew you were going to ask me about this. Have a look at the Action Fraud website. There is some brilliant stuff on there. If you can have a look at that and convey that knowledge and information to your children, your parents, grandparents, then actually together we can definitely tackle this sort of online crime.
When I went on the Action Fraud website, one of the things I thought was really good is if you put your postcode in, that they will send you emails about what's happening locally in your area. And some of them are so clever that you would never, ever imagine it. So getting that information just makes your antennae up a bit higher.
Yeah, and I think we all in today's society want information bespoke to us that we've asked for. There's nothing worse than being bombarded with things you don't want. So I'm pleased that they're giving you the opportunity to filter that. The criminals will always try and stay one step ahead of people that they're trying to victimise or defraud. Actually we have to strike a balance between frightening vulnerable people so that they won't use the internet or they won't answer the door. We don't want them to do that. We want them to be able to go about their day-to-day lives free from crime and the fear of crime. So it's a balance.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. And thank you very much if you've been watching. So today was very much talking about the things that really matter to you, the things that you've raised. But if you want more questions for me to ask the Chief Constable, then please contact me. This is all to do with making the constabulary open and transparent, because the police service belongs to you. And therefore, if you have questions, I will need to make sure that I find the answers. So thank you for listening, and I hope you'll watch again. Thank you.